Good morning, and welcome back to Keeping It 100. I'm your talk show host, Dr. Carr. I am so excited you joined us this morning once again, whether you're watching us via television broadcast or whether you're listening to us through radio broadcast, or if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, we say welcome, and we're so glad to have you. This morning's subject we have is a very intricate and very important subject in which I believe that we need to deal with here in America, a subject in which I believe that we should have a national discussion. And that subject this morning is who and what political party represents America's poor? What political party represents America's poor? So often we listen to the GOP complain about the tax breaks for the wealthy and that they should stay in place and so on and so forth. Obviously, we do know that the GOP represents the American wealthy. Likewise, the Democratic base and Democratic Party of the United States, you hear them quite often in the news media espousing their concerns about issues important to the middle class. But not too often do we hear individuals for either political party espousing concerns about the status of our America's poor. That's right. Those are individuals who are living in mostly predominantly urban neighborhoods or in the rural areas of America. Those individuals are classified a lot of times as our blue-collar workers and individuals who can't work due to health concerns or can't find employment due to unemployment and the unemployment problem that we have here in our country. Well, today I would like to speak to that issue because I feel that that is a very central issue, one in which is long overdue in national discussion. I believe also, and as I've looked at this subject in great detail, that we as Americans, if we would pull collectively together this subject matter and put all of these thinking heads together and find solutions to our what ails our poor community, I think that we could find remedial solutions in order to go through our communities and lift our people up with these issues of poverty. You know, here in America, I think about it often. We live in one of the greatest countries in the world and one of the richest countries, but yet and still we have so many poor and impoverished individuals right here in our country. In a given day, right here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and elsewhere in this country, we have individuals who must sleep on the streets or under a bridge or in the woods or so forth because they have nowhere to live. Well, I have a problem with that because this is America, and in America, that shouldn't be. Poverty is a situation, one I've heard a lot of our professors and some of our more thoughtful intellectuals speak on over the years, and that by all accounts, poverty can be eradicated. Well, some the naysayers say that, you know, there's no hope for poverty, and if you're poor, you're just poor until you die. Well, I do not believe that, and I do not ascribe to that notion that when you're born into poverty and you're born poor, that you will die poor. Absolutely not. How do I know this? Well, I'm one who grew up in extreme poverty. I grew up in the ghettos in the 1970s and 80s. However, I was taught very well, and one of the things I've learned about this issue dealing with poverty is we have to remember that whatever we put into our children, whatever we teach our children, that is what they're going to act on. Well, I recall my mother so often telling me, you know, Chris, you can be anything you want to be, and you can achieve anything you desire to achieve. Now, but on the flip side of that coin, there are other parents in the same neighborhoods who are telling their kids that you are nothing, you never amount to anything, and that, you know, when you do get older and into adulthood, you will be just like I am. Well, I beg you differ. Young folk, if you're listening today, I say to you, you can achieve and rise to any level in which you desire to rise to, because it is all a thing of changing our mindset on our situation, changing our mindset of who we want to be and who we desire to be, and where we desire to go in life. Now, to the adults in the impoverished community, I think it is very vital and important that you, regardless of where you are today, that you impute into your children that they can do anything that they put their minds to do. I look at our president who sits there in the White House today, President Barack Obama. He came from, and you can do your research, we've seen it through the campaign and so forth, very humble upbringing. However, he dared to believe that he could be the president of the United States of America. And yet, and still today, he stands as our elected president of the United States of America. And not only do he stand as our president of the United States of America, for many of us as African Americans, it is a prideful, very strong prideful thing that we have for his rise to presidential office. Now, what is so important today about this subject is that we as Americans who have made it, whether we've gone to college, whether we've been able to pull ourselves up by the bootstrap, or whether we've had encouragement on moving forward, we as Americans that have worked our way out of the ghetto and out of the slums or out of the projects, we should often and always keep the individuals that we left behind in mind, so that they can understand that they can make it and they can achieve in to heights and level at which we have. Now, but to the ones that represent us, our elected officials, especially the Congress and our president, I say to you this morning, Mr. President, there are a lot of things that you've promised the African American community. And one of the promises I think is very essential is not that we're asking for a hand-me-out or or some sort of giveaway from the United States government. Essentially, what the African American community is asking for is essentially a chance. Now, a lot of times we look at the issues as they have been fought. Since you've been in office, you've fought to bring a bailout, the Wall Street and to Wall Street reform, and to bail out the car industries, whether it be Ford or Chrysler or so forth. And you have done a lot to help those ones who, in my estimation, deserve to deal with those problems on their own, because they should have had some sort of safety net in place. However, in the communities I speak of today, these individuals never had a safety net in place, because when we look at this issue, we look back at this issue goes all the way back to our American slave Holocaust right here in the United States of America. Until we stand up and address that major and central issue, essentially and especially for the African American community, the people, I believe, will never be able to rise up and to see their worth, because it is so important to understand that a people that don't know where they come from have no idea of where they're going. So there's a responsibility, a very, very heavy responsibility on our United States Congress and President. Today I say to you that it is your responsibility to stand up for the people that who by no fault of their own are in situations that beg some support. There's been a lot of bailouts, but today we need a bailout for the individuals who cannot represent themselves. Yes, your Democratic Party, you represent essentially the middle class, and the Republican Party, you represent essentially the wealthy class citizens. But I say to both parties, we need both of you to come together collectively and find solutions for our citizens who are stuck into the lower communities, the communities where there are no jobs. And so, you're standing in the unemployment line, wondering when are they going to be able to attain a job or how they're going to feed their children on tomorrow, how they're going to pay the utilities bills, how are they going to pay the water bills, and so forth. Well, these are things that we shouldn't be worried about now, because if it had not been, and so many, people try to make this subject as if the African American poor or the poor white Americans in our country, because they are in this slum at this moment in our history, that these are some lazy people. Well, I beg you differ today. I say to you that had it not been for 25 plus years of bad legislation and policy, our people would not be in the predicament they're in. Matter of fact, had it not been for the American slave holocaust, when we deal with the African American people, I do not believe that we would be in the situation we're in. I will not discuss in length today what I believe on reparation. Yes, I believe in reparation. If the American Jews and the Jews around the world were allotted a reparation for the harm and the diabolical acts that were committed against them, I think that, surely when you look at the damage that's been done to the African American community due to the slave holocaust, surely Americans would agree that there should be some sort of reparation for the people of the United States and the African American community. Now, poverty. I must deal with this before we close this segment today. Poverty is an issue that I believe that we can address. But the question is, do we want to address the issue? I say to you today, Americans, contact your elected leaders. Let them know this time around, before we get to the 2012 election, let them know that this time around we need their support to support those who are in our impoverished communities. We need a voice. We need someone that's going to stand for the people, one that's going to represent the people, one that's going to go into the community to find out what the problems are for the community. One thing I've learned has been one that's running for Raleigh City Council at this moment in history, is that the people of those communities, if you ask them, they know what they need in order to come up out of impoverished situations. They know what they need to rise from where they are. Now, how can you expect an individual or persons to rise when there is no jobs in sight for them to obtain? How can you expect for a person to rise when they have no money in order to pay their utility bills or even to afford rent? So I say to you, America, let's have this important discussion. Let's put aside our political beliefs. Let's deal the way that Jesus even dealt in the Bible with our poor. Let us stand up and be that voice that's crying in the wilderness for the ones who have no voice in America. Now, I thank you today for joining us here on Keeping It 100. This is part one of our subject, Who Represents America's Poor. And we will be back tomorrow discussing part two of this very vital subject of who represents America's poor. Thank you once again for joining us on Keeping It 100. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.